What is the most creepiest, bone-chilling thing you have ever read online that claims to be true? Story 1. This fudge shoot I read in a thread a while back. Lost the link. True story time. I was about 4 or 5 years old and my parents had just separated. My mom was living in a 2-bedroom apartment. I had my own room, but I liked sleeping in her bed whenever I was staying with her. Our 2 bedrooms were at the end of a hallway directly across from each other. Our apartment was on the first floor, and I remember that it was in the middle of the summer, and my mom had a window open her room that was directly behind the bed, above the headboard. Anyways, I woke up in the middle of the night and remember sitting up and seeing that our cat was sitting in the doorframe of my mom's room. Her door was open, and you could partially see into my bedroom. It was strange because our cat was a huge snuggler and was typically always in bed with us. As I was watching him, he walked into my bedroom and meowed. I turned to face my mom and wake her up. In the 3-4 seconds it took her to wake up and ask me what was wrong, we both looked back up in the door frame, and there was a man standing by my open door, making his way out of my bedroom. I still don't know how she managed to do it so quickly. But my mother proceeded to pick me up and literally throw me out of the screen window. Again, we were on the first floor and it was maybe a 3-foot drop to the ground. She quickly followed, and we were able to start screaming for help, and someone called 911. The police came but didn't see any signs of forced entry, only that our front door was unlocked, which led them to believe the man must have exited that way. But the strange thing was that my mom swore up and down that she had locked the door that night with the deadbolt and chain lock. About a week later, she was cleaning the kitchen and opened up our water heater closet and found a notebook with names and drawings, as well as a pair of gloves and some gum wrappers. The man had been in our house and hid until we were asleep. Answer: that reminds me of something I read on crack.com, that a Japanese man had been noticing things were subtly different every morning when he got up. Things had moved slightly and whatnot, so he set up cameras in his apartment filming through the night. The next morning he reviewed the tapes and saw on the tape that a drawer started opening itself, and out came this weird skinny girl who went around in his house and showered in his bathroom and ate some of his food and then went back into the drawer. He watched to the end of the tape until he appeared in the frame again just when he started checking the tape. She was still in the drawer next to him. Turned out it was a homeless person who was living as a sort of stowaway in his apartment. Edit, you gradual homo, great name by the way, requested a link, so here we go. Story 2. It was the story about an ex-Marine who was driving on the road at night, and he sees a car in the middle of the road with 2 people lying on the ground. He has this gut feeling that something is wrong, and he decides to act on it by driving past the car and the 2 people. While he is driving, he takes a look at his rearview mirror to see the 2 people lying on the road stand up with 10 other people coming out of the bushes. I did not know that assholes like this existed. Story 3. I don't remember what the link was, but it was a form of people with infectious diseases coordinating to send vials of blood to people with other infectious diseases. They would take low doses of antibiotics to weaken the effect of the antibiotics and strengthen the strains of diseases. I remember thinking that this was the kind of stuff that the CDC would get involved in immediately. It was basically bioterrorism. Answer: shoot. I remember seeing a big collage of posts linked on Reddit from 4chan. It was a bunch of HIV-positive guys purposefully spreading it to other people. It was very detailed and grotesque shoot about slurping HIV-infected cum out of used condoms in the bathroom and such. I hope it wasn't real, but who knows? Either way, it's fudge terrifying that people have that sort of fantasy. Edit. This guy found and posted it. Story 4. For me, it's the guy who was camping out in the deep forests of Canada, or something, and thought he was being watched by something. He didn't think much more of it before he got home and found a picture of himself sleeping in the camera. Answer: short story time. My friends and I were having a sleepover in junior high when we first read that creepypasta. We were all sufficiently freaked out by it, to say the least, especially because the area in my friend's house that we were staying in had huge, almost ceiling floor windows and a large glass sliding door with no blinds. They had recently moved in and hadn't gotten them yet. The house also backed up to the woods, so being a bunch of sissy 12-year-olds, we were freaked out. We talked about it a bit and decided it just couldn't have been real. After a lot of reasoning and discussion, we figured it was just a stupid story, turned off the computer and went on our way playing video games and watching TV and whatnot. So we fall asleep, but I wake up in the middle of the night to go get something to drink. I notice my friend's computer, which was facing the area where we were sleeping, had been turned on. Funny, I was sure we turned it off. I logged on and the background of the computer was a fudge picture of us sleeping. I lost my shoot. I screamed and woke up my friends to show them, and we all just lost it. We then realized our phones weren't where we left them. As one of them went to call their parents to pick them up because they were so freaked out, we looked around and saw them on the table by the TV, and we went to look at them. The backgrounds on all of our phones were pictures of each of us sleeping. We screamed so loud in horror, only to hear someone laughing. My friend's older brother came downstairs and was laughing hysterically. Turns out the bastard had heard us talking and decided to scare us, took our phones and messed with them. We then confronted him about the computer background. He seemed confused. He hadn't touched the computer. He didn't even know my friend's password to log on. Plus, the webcam on it was brand new, and he didn't know how to use it. Now the brother is freaked out. We all start panicking again. When we hear another laugh, my friend's dad now comes down the stairs, almost in tears from laughter. Turns out my friend's father snuck down after the brother, having seen what he did, and changed the computer background. TLDR. Dads and brothers are assholes for the sake of pranks. Minor edit, grammar mistakes. Story 5. The story of the woman who went missing and her Facebook account devolved into a paranoid schizophrenic mess always creeps me out the most. I realize this is very late, but thanks to Uzef Sofries for the name link, Karen Catherine Waldegrave, Bopenta Sinla. Answer: I saw a much milder, but still unsettling version of this. When I was a freshman in college, back when I still had a Facebook, some girl a year or two older than me in a New York university friended me. I don't even quite remember how she knew me, or if she did. I used to have a blog people followed back then, so I would sometimes get random people adding me, and I saw no reason to deny them. It was an odd follow over time, like some slow descent into madness. Her status updates would populate on my Facebook home feed, and they just got more and more disturbing. It was more sad than anything, really. Would start out as your typical depressed young person stuff, and then slowly elevate into hints of being intimacy abused as a child, which grew bolder over time, and insistence that people were plotting against her. The government police were involved, etc. I deleted my Facebook after college, so not sure whatever became of her. But it's unfortunate, at least from what I saw on there, to think some people are just trapped in their own scary realities. Story 6. I've read about serial killers quite a lot. I just find the subject fascinating and never really get caught up on or affected by grisly details. Sure, I feel sad for the victims and their loved ones, but the gore and depravity never really bothers me. Dahmer, Chikatilo, Gein, Fish. Read all about them in detail and was perfectly fine. However, there was one guy whose deeds really did shoot me up. Dean Corll. He was America's most prolific serial killer before Ted Bundy took the dubious distinction, so I thought it strange that I'd never heard of him before. The short of it is that he was a Pretty normal guy in his younger years. A bit of repressed homosexuality, but nothing about him could have hinted at what he was capable of. He basically groomed and paid two boys to supply him with their friends, and when they ran out, other kids in several neighborhoods he lived over the years. He would tie these kids, all boys, to his torture board, where he would abuse, violation, mutilate, and ultimately eliminate them. Then he would dispose of the bodies in several locations, including a boathouse. These activities went on for a number of years, and he was very careful and methodical about the whole thing. I don't think it was ever suspected by authorities that the large number of missing boys were connected. The thing that really shook me up is how the two boys he recruited were so callous and were perfectly fine in sending boys of their own age and social group school to their deaths for cash, and were quite happy to aid Coral in torturing the victims and disposing of the bodies. Eventually, one of the boys brought a girl to his friend. Coral, angry and annoyed, and scared the girl might report him, set about eliminate the girl. But the boy must have liked her, or something, because he ended up shooting and eliminate Coral to protect her. I think the fact he was never captured or faced punishment for his crimes makes him much creepier than other serial killers. He was never seen on the stand or in a jumpsuit in jail, so he seems less human for it. He was never analyzed by psychologists and found to be a madman or deeply disturbed. There's just no logic or reason behind his crimes other than his own personal gratification. He's just emblazoned in my mind as some kind of heinous boogeyman above and beyond the reach of man's police and justice system. That's why he shoot me up more than any other serial killer I've read about. Can't remember the article or where on the web it was, but it was a lot more detailed than the Wikipedia article and included Polaroid pictures of victims, some still unidentified, strapped to his torture board, awaiting their horrific, untimely ends. Not for the faint of heart. Answer: relevant story. In high school, I was super fascinated by serial killers. Read every book on them I could get my hands on. Once on the way to a party in high school, a friend and I were driving through the Heights. I had just finished the Encyclopedia of Serial Killers the night before. I mentioned that we're in the same neighborhood where Coral did his work. Friend asks what street. Do a little Googling because I'd blanked on the street name. I tell her, Columbia Street. We both look at the Columbia Street sign in front of us and just nope it the fudge right out of there. I mean, it was years after Coral was even active, but the coincidence was just so eerie. Story 7. Every goddamn time a scientific article announces that a meteor will be passing crazy close to Earth, and always has that caveat of, astronomers have estimated the chance of an impact at 1 in 100,000, but for the remaining 2/3 of this article we will explain how it will vaporize our atmosphere and all organic life. And then, to be complete assholes. It's not a matter of if, but when. God damn it, science article. I'm already in enough trouble with the landlord for digging spontaneous fallout shelters in the lawn. Story 8. An ex-boyfriend of mine was an Iraqi Kurd. He told me a crazy story from camping in the woods in northern Iraq. He and a few friends were skipping school the day before the weekend, Thursday in the Middle East. They had plans to go right after school, thus their parents thought they were at school, so they left their iPhones at home so their parents can't see where they are. The rumor in the area outside is that in the woods outside Erbil, the people who were gassed by Saddam were banished, the ones that lived, with their birth defects, essentially hills have eyes, human corpses stripped of flesh have been found in cabins, and authorities refuse to enter those woods, etc., etc. So, back to my ex, they arrive at the woods and park their car on the road at the bottom of a hill. They set camp and make a fire and begin like teenage boys to scare the shoot out of each other and recall the stories about these banished, for lack of a better word, mutants. As night falls, they begin to hear whispering in the trees and twigs snapping. They retreat to the tent and let the fire die alone outside out of fear. As the fire dies, they hear the voices getting closer and start to panic, trying to keep quiet. There is more than a dozen mutants outside the tent. They hear all of their stuff being rummaged through, and they lay petrified in the tent just looking at each other. One of the mutants asks if they should see who's in the tent, to which another replied, "Leave them." Unable to call for help, they wait till dawn breaks, only to find their entire camp destroyed with no money missing, no electronics missing, just food, cooking pots, and clothing missing. Trying to gather what had happened, a lone woman walks down the hill towards them. She has no fingers and wrapped in fabric. Shreds. At this point, they bolt barefoot down the hill, trying to reach the car. When my ex reaches the bottom near a stream, he stops to cross it. And squatting in the river taking a piss is a young girl with no hair, no nose, and a missing eye. Just staring at him, she starts to scream as loud as she can. Worried she'll alert the others, he keeps running. When he gets to the car, his friends are waiting for him. But the car had been raided already, and they had left the keys at the camp. Needless to say, they walked till they hitched a ride. A few months later, an Austrian film crew fled the forest in the same manner after filming a documentary. However, they had found reportedly a cabin full of filet human carcasses in police and military uniforms. Story 9. If anyone remembers this story, help me out. I know I'm messing up some parts and I want to reread what actually happened. About 2 years ago, I read about a man who posted an ad on Craigslist claiming to own a legit production company, and he was casting for an indie horror film. I guess some actors replied and showed up for the casting. This guy was a total nut, but they assumed he was just odd and agreed to do the film because they wanted new work for their acting reels. After a few days of working with him, everyone quits because he starts to come off as a little disturbed. He then proceeds to post a personal ad on Craigslist, posing as a woman looking for a fling. He exchanges some emails with a young guy from the area, and he tells her he'll pick her up for coffee. The guy parks outside of this woman's house, texts her and says, "Hey, I'm outside whenever you're ready," or something like that. She replies, says he can come in while she gets ready, but to enter through the garage door, which was already open. The guy goes into the garage, and the door immediately starts closing behind him. Someone knocks him out. He wakes up strapped to a table in a Dexter-type setting with a camera on him. I think there were knives and tools on a table beside him. He somehow escaped after a few hours. Could have been days, I forget. But waited to go to the police because he was embarrassed. Once the police start questioning the original director dude, they find out he has a history of mental illness. They take a journal from his room that was filled with diary entries of how he would eliminate people, one being a man strapped to a table in his garage, but claimed they were just movie ideas. If I'm not mistaken, they later found a dead girl in his neighbor's trash can, who was believed to have met him on Craigslist after he posted another casting ad. I need to know if he ever got convicted. There was a Dateline special about him too. TLDR. Man claims to be movie director on Craigslist, looking to cast actors. One girl who replied is found in a trash can. A man who replied to a different post by the same director was knocked out and strapped to a table in his garage. Police found a journal with his movie ideas, one of which included a man being strapped to a table and taken down while it was filmed. Edit, okay. So after reading the Wikipedia page for Mark Twitchell, it turns out he actually used plentyoffish.com, a legit dating website. First guy he tried to eliminate escaped. The second victim was reported missing after his friends and family received a weird email about him going to Costa Rica with a woman he just met, and his boss received a resignation email. He was then found dismembered, and Twitchell was arrested. He also was convicted and sentenced 25 life. Thanks for the help. Answer: I saw this on ID Discovery too, so it's definitely true. There was a guy he escaped because he ended up fighting back and miraculously winning. But the fudge up thing was that he saw two people on the street and begged them to help him, but they didn't. And then the guy drugged him with some sort of paralyzing substance and dragged him back into the garage where he fought him even more. It was so darn freaky. Story 10. I can't find it right now, but a few times on Reddit I've seen the forum posts about gay men purposefully transmitting HIV to unsuspecting partners. Edit. Found it. Story 11. Sujunko Furuta. You asked for bone chilling, so here it is, you little shoot. I haven't even reread it, but I'm still off to Refunny to purge my brain of the whole idea for a few hours. Story 12. That post on WTF, where the poster accidentally photographs someone standing in their backyard. I can't find it right now, but I'll try. Edit. Found it. Story 13. This reminds me of a situation that happened to me. I was serving in the U.S. Army and stationed in Fort Polk, Louisiana. If you've ever been there or known someone in the U.S. Army who has, then you'd know this place is a shoot hole. The whole region is nothing but dirt roads, shoot towns, angry rednecks, and wilderness. Luckily, I grew up in Dallas, Texas. I was able to drive home every other weekend to see friends and family. Back then, my eyesight was perfect, and I actually preferred doing long drives at night when the traffic was light and I could actually make out the headlights of police. Cars in the distance, since the police always drove Ford Crown Victorias back then. It was about a 5-hour drive, and about 3 hours of it was back roads that went through a lot of temperate forest and swamps. There were multiple ways to go, but this way allowed me to go the fastest with the fewest stops. I was driving through the dark, not a single light anywhere other than the stars, and they weren't too bright. Then suddenly, I see a person on a bicycle in the distance. I remember he was wearing a white t-shirt and jeans. The white shirt reflected my headlights enough that I was able to see him within enough time to slow down and pull to the left, more to give him some space. I passed him at about 30 mph, then sped back up to about 55 mph and kept going. About 15 minutes later, I see another bicycle in the distance, so I slow down again. As I'm coming up on this one, I see that it's another person in a white shirt and jeans. I never paid too much attention to the first one, so I couldn't say whether or not it was the same guy on the same bike, but I obviously assumed it was a strange coincidence. I laughed it off and kept going. I did get a good look at the guy that time. I noted that the bike was dark blue, no reflectors, at least on the rear, and he had thick brown hair and white sneakers on. I kept going, and about 10 minutes later, I almost have a heart attack when I see another white shirt dancing in the distance reflecting my headlights. I slowed down to about 25 mph as I come up on him. As I come closer and see it's another person on another bicycle, I pay close attention. As I pass him going slow enough to probably creep him out, I stare out of the side window at him. He stares right back at me. Same guy, same bike, same clothes, same everything. This one guy managed to somehow bike his way through a wormhole or something and end up 10 minutes ahead of me on the roadway 3 times at 10 p.m. The way he looked at me wasn't ominous or creepy. He looked at me like I was freaking him out just as much as he was freaking me out. That made it creepier for me because something that impossible should be creepy to me, not him. It's like we came from different dimensions and just happened to meet on this same stretch of wilderness road where the physics of our two worlds cannot coincide. I speed the hell up and drive out of there as fast as I can. I wasn't tired. Before or after this, but I assumed I needed some coffee or something. A few minutes later, I come across the only 24-hour gas station on the road until you reach the Shreveport region. I quickly pull in and go inside. I grab a bottle of water and some coffee first, then go looking for something to munch on. I'm creeped out and just can't stop thinking about the guy on the bike. I didn't realize how long I spent just standing in the snack aisle thinking and not purchasing anything. Then I see him, the same guy on the same bike. He is riding past where I parked my car. He pulls his bike up to the side of the building and comes inside. As soon as he enters, he sees me and we catch each other's eyes. He has a weird look on his face, and I'm sure I did too. We are both visibly uncomfortable. Now that I get a better look at him, I see the white t-shirt says something about a softball team on it and a big number 05 over the breast pocket. He goes over to the cashier and they begin chatting. I can kind of tell he asked about me. The cashier probably told him it was strange that I was just standing.